What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So every single season in the NHL, teams have some young players break out on their roster, go from guys that were more so bottom of the lineup players to turning into actual key core pieces. Some names last year, Seth Jarvis finally really popped, Wyatt Johnston took a massive step. So today I wanted to go through every single team, all 32, and name some of the guys that I think could be breakout stars. Not all of them are going to be these massive guys that jump to 70 points. It's obviously just unrealistic, but guys that I think people could be surprised with just how much they break out. And I'm not going to have former like first or second overall picks like Quinton Byfield or Uri Slafkovsky, because those guys are trending in the right direction. In order for like Byfield to really break out, you need like an 85, 90 point season. Slafkovsky like 80 points. So we're going to dive into it. And starting up first, we have the Florida Panthers. I'm going to go with Anton Lundell. When looking at him, he had a great rookie season, 44 points in 65 games. Then kind of got demoted to that third line center. And as a result, he only had 33 points in 2023 and 35 this year. But he was fantastic in the playoffs. He had 17 points in 24 games. And I think the plan is probably for him to turn into the second line center, considering he got into the extension, and Sam Bennett to probably walk after next season. So I could see his role definitely increase this season, and he goes for 55, 60 points and really breaks out and is just consistently that for the next half decade. Next up, the Boston Bruins, Mason Lohrei, 6'5", pretty smooth moving defenseman, and he put up 26-point pace last year. According to Daily Faceoff right now, he's on the second power play. So when looking at that Boston Bruins team, you could probably go with Matt Poncher here, but I'm going to go with Mason Lohrei just because I don't think Poncher's going to be playing either the first line or second line role. Lohrei, not going to be shattering fucking 45, 50 points, but I think he could surprise a lot of people and put up like 35 points on a really good Boston Bruins team, and that would be a sizable breakout for the Boston Bruins. The Anaheim Ducks, Lucas Dostal, especially after the World Championships that he had this year, 8 games, .938 save percentage on the gold medal winning Czechia, and I think he's probably going to seize the starting job from John Gibson when looking at the fact that he played 38 or started 38 games last year. I think that number's probably only going to go up. It's going to be tough because the Ducks don't have the best defense core. He's not going to be getting a ton of goal support, but it wouldn't surprise me if he plays 49 games and posts a 9-10, and come next summer, he's on my top 20 goalies in the NHL list. For the New Jersey Devils, it's a little bit of a cheat because he like kind of broke out in 2023, but then went like back down, so people are kind of forgetting about him. But it's Dawson Mercer. Dawson Mercer had a strong rookie year. Then in his sophomore year, he had 27 goals, 29 assists, for 56 points, but this year only 33 points. I think he's going to bounce back. He still played 17, 13 a night last year. As long as he can hopefully get into that second line role and play with either Hughes or Hischier, with the other very good wingers that they have, I think that he's well on track to potentially get back to around 55 points and reemerge as an important piece to the New Jersey Devils. He's got to sign first. He's still unsigned as of right now. The Tampa Bay Lightning, J.J. Mosier, when looking at him, he had 31 points in 2023 with the Arizona Coyotes, then 26 this year. Although he does play the left side with Ryan McDonough and Victor Hedman on the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think he could surprise some people, and there's not a ton of people to choose from with the Tampa Bay Lightning because they're kind of an older team. So I think Mosier can surprise some people and maybe break out a decent amount, considering the fact he's going from like the team that no one really cared about in the Arizona Coyotes to the Tampa Bay Lightning. For the Chicago Blackhawks, I have another defenseman, Kevin Korchinski. Last year on a horrible Chicago Blackhawks defense core, he was kind of a bright spot, only had 15 points, but had very solid underlying offensive numbers, and he played 1937 a night. So I think this year, there's a decent chance that he takes a step, gets 30 to 35 points for the Chicago Blackhawks. He is hopefully their top pair offensive defenseman of the future, and I still think that even though he needs to work a little bit defensively, I think the offensive game is there, and I think with more talent around him, he's definitely going to put up more points and maybe get some run on that second power play. Marco Rossi had a very good rookie year, 21 goals, 19 assists, 40 points. I can see him only get better from here, considering he's probably going to be their second line center, assuming that they don't stack the first line with Kaprizov, Ek, and Boldy, and Rossi gets to play with either Kaprizov or Boldy. I think he probably should go for at least 25 and 25. 30 and 30 is perfectly possible for a guy like Marco Rossi, just such a skilled offensive player. The Winnipeg Jets, another 2020 OHL guy that was extremely skilled in his draft year. Cole Perfetti, 19 goals, 19 assists, 38 points in 71 games, and only like 13 minutes a night. Rick Bowness did not like this guy. He sat out the first 4 games of the playoffs, although Scott Arniel was also on that coaching staff. Hopefully he likes Perfetti more. And I think if Perfetti is actually given proper run like he should be, like the same way Nikolai Ehlers also should be, I think Perfetti can easily be sniffing around 30 and 30 if he's actually given legit top 6 minutes. I don't know why the team has not really let him run with an opportunity. He's a stud. My New York Islanders, I'm going with an older guy. A lot of these guys are going to be younger on this list if you can't tell by now. But I'm going to go with Anthony Duclair. He was very good in Florida, but after tearing his Achilles and then having a rough season in San Jose, he was very good once he got traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning. It would not surprise me one bit if he is sniffing 30 and 30 this season, considering the fact that their left wing depth is pretty dire when looking at Anders Lee. He's probably going to beat out Anders Lee for that top line left wing spot with Matt Barzal and Bo Horvat. And those guys are established 65-plus point guys. So I think Duclair can be an effective left winger for them. The Ottawa Senators, Shane Pinto, he kind of broke out a little bit last season when looking at it, but he only played 41 games because of the gambling suspension. He had 27 points, and I think he is probably the number 2 center of the future for the Ottawa Senators. Considering Josh Norris continues to deal with these shoulder problems, I wouldn't be shocked one bit if Pinto goes for 60, 65 points next season in a second-line center role. I think he's a very underrated player, and I'm not just saying that because he's from Long Island and I'm biased. He was an absolute stud last year, and another guy that was an absolute stud in only around 40 games was Dylan Guenther of the Utah Hockey Club. This guy had 18 goals, 17 assists for 35 points in 45 games. Those are crazy numbers. That's like, 64-point pace roughly. So when looking at him a full season, playing with either Logan Cooley most likely on that second line, he's really going to break out. He could easily go for 30. He was on pace for 30 and 30 last year. So I think he's just going to show people when he gets a full season, he is one of the best young wingers in the entire NHL. Point blank period. Not enough people are talking about Dylan Guenther right now. Next up, we got the Dallas Stars. And I'm going to go with Logan Stankoven. Wyatt Johnson has already broken out. Maverick Bourque, I think, is probably going to be in the bottom 6. But Logan Stankoven has a legit chance to go north of 60, 65 points. When looking at him last year, he put up 14 points in 24 games. And there's a chance that he could be playing on the top line right wing with Jason Robertson and Rupe Hintz. This guy is only 5'8", but he is an absolute dog. And he showed last year that he can play at a high level. He might low-key be my Calder pick, just considering the fact if he's in that top 6, either first or second line, he's going to get a lot of opportunities. The Colorado Avalanche, Justus Annunen, 928 save percentage in 14 games. It's only 14 games. He did have a 908 in 23 games in the AHL, but the fact that he was so effective in his limited NHL action and the fact that Alexander Georgiev was kind of shit last year, there is a real possibility that Annunen could take over the starting position. He's not some random guy. He is a highly regarded goalie prospect, and he would be in such an ideal situation with the Colorado Avalanche that he could really emerge and be a very, very good starter, be top 10 in the entire NHL in wins if he somehow took that starting job from Georgiev. Next up, the Dallas Stars, Simon Edvinsson as their breakout player. Lucas Raymond broke out last year. Mort Seider is well regarded as a number 1. So when looking at it, Simon Edvinsson, yes, he would be. He's technically a rookie, although he's not Calder eligible because he passed the game limits. But when looking at Simon Edvinsson, they're going to need him to be basically like a good second pair defenseman in order for them to make the playoffs with just how bad their defense core is right now. And if he really breaks out, if he really hits, he's going to be that missing link, that missing piece to the Detroit Red Wings making the playoffs. The Seattle Kraken, Ty Cartier, 20 points in 77 games last year. He had some Calder buzz coming into last season, didn't really quite live up to it, but when looking at Seattle, maybe he can potentially move his way up into the lineup and get you like 40, 45 points. He's still only 23 years old. He's still a solid young piece. The Pittsburgh Penguins don't have a lot of young guys, so I kind of by default have to go Rucker McGrody, even though he hasn't played a single NHL game. I don't know how much Mike Sullivan is going to play him, but considering this guy had 52 points in 36 NCAA games last year, 6'2", 200 pounds, big body, kind of plays the ideal NHL style. Maybe if he's thrown on that second line wing with Evgeny Malkin, he can have a 45, 50-point season and really break out and look like a steal for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The New York Rangers, I'm not going with Capo Caco. Lafreniere broke out last year. Filipino kind of broke out a year or two ago, but I'm not so sure with the concussions, and he's probably only going to stay on that third line center. I'm going to go with a guy like Zach Jones. He had 9 points in 31 games last year as a defenseman. Laviolette said recently that he's going to give him a bunch of opportunities to be an everyday NHLer. If he can somehow get some second power play time as an offensive defenseman, maybe he can score 30, 35 points and be an effective defenseman for the New York Rangers. The Buffalo Sabres, my guy Zach Benson, I was very high on him in the 2023 draft. He was my number 5 prospect ahead of a guy like Will Smith. Last year at the NHL level, 30 points in 71 games. I didn't see nearly enough people talking about him. They were obviously talking about Bedard, Fantilli, Carlson, but when looking at Benson, how he was so effective and not that massive, well, he's playing like 14, 30 a night, but nobody was talking about him because he plays in Buffalo, which is pretty irrelevant. But coming into this season, you look at their left wing spot, although I do think Peterka is probably the better player. Peterka had 28 goals last year, as well as Jason Zucker. Benson could be their second line left wing, and he can maybe get some second power play time and could score 50 to 55 points and really break out in a big way. I think this guy is going to be a stud when it's all said and done. The San Jose Sharks, William Eklund got to be their breakout player. 45 points last year with not a ton of talent around him. And if Celebrini and Will Smith really hit, if he's on a top line with like Tyler Toffoli and Macklin Celebrini, I think we could be legitimately looking at a 65, 70-point season for William Eklund, another guy that I was also very high on back in his draft year of 2021. And after the season that I saw this year, I'm a full believer. I'm a full believer in William Eklund. For the Edmonton Oilers, Ty Emberson, the guy that they traded for in the Cody Ceci deal, defenseman, 10 points in 30 games last year. Very solid defensive numbers on a San Jose Sharks team that absolutely stunk. So maybe he slides into that second pair role that Cody Ceci occupied. Going to play with Darnell Nurse, but I think he could surprise some people. There's not a ton of forwards. Maybe you can go with Matthew Savoy here. I'm not sure he's going to be playing in the NHL. So as a result, I'm going to go with Ty Emberson, still only 24 years old. The Calgary Flames, the flip side of Alberta. Connor Zary, when looking at it, he was a sleeper Calder pick after the first couple of months in the season, but he did deal with some injuries. He finished with 34 points in 63 games. Right now, he's slotted to play on the second line with Sharon Govich and Mantha. So you give this guy a full season, maybe gives him some top power play time. It would not surprise me if Connor Zary puts up 55, 60 points next year, considering he was so good in his rookie year and really established himself as a true key piece of this Calgary Flames rebuild for the next decade. The Carolina Hurricanes, Jack Drury, 24 years old, only 27 points last year, but you look at how wide open that second line center position is for the Carolina Hurricanes. He could easily beat out Kotkaniemi and give you 45 to 50 points and really establish himself as a low-end second line center. Probably isn't, probably more so a third line center, but still, the opportunity is there for a potential breakout of a guy like Jack Drury. Also, Scott Morrow potentially could be a stud. The St. Louis Blues, I'm going to go with Philip Broberg just because they're paying him so much at $4.6 million roughly that I think they're going to play him a lot, if that makes sense. And you look at the left side of the St. Louis Blues defense core right now, it's Nick Leddy, Torrey Krug, who's dealing with like his arthritis in his ankle or something, and Scott Perunovich. So there's going to be opportunities for him to go up the lineup, and they're going to be rooting for him to succeed. So as a result, it wouldn't shock me if Broberg has 30 points next year on a St. Louis defense core that is pretty bad. The Toronto Maple Leafs, Joseph Woll, he's got to stay healthy, but as of right now, in 34 career NHL games, he is a 9-12, 9-33 in 7 playoff games. If he stays healthy, it would not surprise me if he puts up like a 9-14 in like 45 to 50 games, maybe even get some Vezina votes. This guy's extremely talented, but the durability has not really been there for him. Hoping that for his own sake, not for the Toronto Maple Leafs' sake, I hope that the Toronto Maple Leafs absolutely stink, but I hope for his own sake that he's able to stay healthy. Next up, the Montreal Canadiens. If someone's going to break out and they're going to have to take a massive step, it's going to have to be Kirby Dach. 38 points in 58 games in 2023. Dealt with some injuries. Then this year or last year, blew out his knee in the second game. If Montreal, this is kind of like a make or break year for Kirby Dach in a way. Not saying they're going to get rid of him, but they might start looking at other guys as their future second line center. If he can't break out in a big way and give you a full season, give you 55, 60, maybe even 65 points, considering the talent that he's going to have on his second line compared to previous years where they kind of were talent devoid at that second line position. So I think Kirby Dach kind of needs to break out in a big way for the Montreal Canadiens. The Nashville Predators, Luke Evangelista had a very good rookie year, 39 points. And if he can get in that top 6 on that second line, playing with Stamkos, playing with Marchessault, I could see him really breaking out and getting 55, 60 points. The Vancouver Canucks, Artur Silovs kind of broke out last year during the playoffs, but Demko is apparently dealing with yet another injury, so he could really get a decent amount of games. He could play 30-plus games this season, considering how injury-prone we have seen Thatcher Demko the last 2 seasons. It's going to be very interesting to see how much he plays in Vancouver this season. The Los Angeles Kings, although he will be a rookie, but it's kind of his rookie season. He's not Calder eligible anymore. But Brant Clark, after having 46 points in 50 games at the AHL level, he is going to be expected to kind of be a sizable piece to this LA Kings defense core, and rightfully so. I think he has the offensive capabilities to do so. Hopefully he gets some run on that second power play, and it would not surprise me if a full rookie season from Brant Clark, he gets 40 points for the LA Kings. The Vegas Golden Knights, Pavel Dafuriev. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct, but when looking at him, he's like the one exciting young piece for the Vegas Golden Knights. 24 points in 47 games last year. Right now he's slotted to be on a line with Tomas Hertl as well as Mark Stone, so that's pretty interesting. He could maybe pop off for 50, 55 points, considering he was scoring at around 41, 42 point pace this year, and Vegas's forward core is a lot more shallow, so he rightfully so should get more of an opportunity this year on a playoff hopeful. The Philadelphia Flyers, I've been gassing up Cam York for multiple seasons now. Last year, he did take a sizable step, 30 points in 82 games, playing 22 minutes and 37 seconds a night. I think that he is probably going to emerge as their number one defenseman this season. Wouldn't surprise me if he's playing 22, 30, 24 minutes and goes for around, I think I had him in my defenseman predictions at around 45 points. I'm a believer in Cam York. Is he ever going to be like a franchise number one defenseman? Probably not, but he is a very, very good, young, talented guy that is probably going to be in a number one role this year for a Philadelphia team that I don't think is going to be very good. Next up, the Washington Capitals. Connor McMichael, when looking at him, 18 goals, 33 points, playing around 16 minutes a night last year for the Washington Capitals. He's projected to be on a second line with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Andrew Mangiapane, so hopefully he can take another step and be sniffing around 50 points. I think that's perfectly reasonable for Connor McMichael. And then last but not least, I did not forget you, Columbus. I am going with Kirill Marchenko, one of the funniest rookie stat lines of all time when he had 21 goals, 4 assists, 25 points in 59 games. Then the following year, 23 goals, 19 assists, 42 points in 78 games. I think he's in store for a decent year, considering right now he's slotted to play on the top line with Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan. Gaudreau and Monahan obviously have chemistry together. Gaudreau has some chemistry with Kirill Marchenko, as well as the fact that he is currently slotted on the top power play. It would not shock me if Kirill Marchenko goes for 30 goals and 30 assists this season. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about these breakout picks? I know some of these aren't like that sexy of breakout picks. Again, I wasn't going to go with like top 5 guys to finally take a 15-point jump that's expected at that point. I want to go with some more under the radar picks, but let me know in the comments, what do you think? I'll be seeing the next one.